Hello, thank you for joining me. We are going to talk about Chapter 6 today in personal finance, talking about consumer purchasing strategies and wise buying of motor vehicles. So this is going to cover a lot of different items that we would buy, including a car. Let's go ahead and get started on that. So practical purchasing strategies. If you can implement these strategies, it will really help you whether you are purchasing a car, maybe another big purchase, or even just your daily purchases. So one thing we need to think about is timing our purchases. So there are certain times that things will be discounted. We could be talking about something as little as groceries. Maybe you wait for a BOGO sale. Or you could be talking about something like a vehicle. There are certain times of the year that vehicles are the least expensive. Usually tax season, when everybody's getting their tax return, is going to be one of the most expensive times to buy a car. Car lots are replenishing their inventory, and they are going to charge higher prices because they know a lot of people have a chunk of cash on hand. So that's one of the worst times to have to buy a vehicle. And for most anything you purchase, you can do some research to see when the best time to buy something is. Maybe it's, Black Friday. Maybe it's the day after Thanksgiving. I need a new car, a new phone, and I am planning to wait until the day after Thanksgiving or that Cyber Monday after to see if I can get a discount on it. So timing your purchases can really save you a lot of money. Your purchase location. So depending on what you're buying, there are a lot of times there are different places you can buy. Let's say we're talking about groceries again. I prefer to go to Lidl or Aldi to buy my groceries because they are overall less expensive than what you're going to find them at Publix or Bilo or even Walmart. Now, if you are an extreme couponer, then perhaps you can get some of those items cheaper. I do not want to spend my time couponing, so I would prefer just to go to a discount grocery store. But that's one example of your purchase location being important. Let's say that you are buying a new car. Well, that can also, the prices can range a lot. Are you going to the dealership? Are you going to find somebody on Craigslist? Are you going to go to CarMax? You may find different prices on the cars depending on which location you choose to shop at. And brand comparison, so this kind of falls under that Lidl, Aldi versus Bilo, or maybe if you're in Bilo, there might be several different brands of each item. And a lot of times you can compare those and see, are you paying an extra $2 to buy Honey Nut Cheerios versus, Honey-O's, which would be the off-brand. And also, are those Honey-O's going to taste as good as Honey Nut Cheerios? Maybe give them a try. If they're a couple dollars cheaper for that box, maybe give them a try. And maybe you'll find that the name brand is worth it because it tastes better. Or maybe you'll realize this is exactly the same product. Sometimes companies produce the same product in the same building and they put different labels on it. Then Honey Nut Cheerios is more expensive because they advertise it. You're paying for those commercials with that cute little bee on there. You are paying for that advertising. You're paying for that name brand, even though the off-brand may be the exact same product with a different box. So it's important to compare brands for that. Same thing for vehicles. Different brands obviously are going to be way more expensive. Are you getting a Lexus or a BMW, or are you going to get a Kia? And you can compare other things besides just their price, but safety features and things like that as well. All right, label information, dates on products. So sometimes when we are comparing food especially, there may be a date on there, and those are not always things that you have to stick by. A lot of times they are sell-by dates. Just today, I went grocery shopping, and I got a bag of broccoli already chopped up. And it was going to be $4.99 for this big bag of broccoli at Lidl. Or there was a bag that was a little bit older. The broccoli still looked fine, but it's getting closer to its sell-by date. So they gave me a 30% discount. So I actually got $1.50 off of that bag. And I said, okay, well, I'll make sure I cook this tonight so that it will not go bad. So it'll be worth that $1.50 that I saved. Some products I personally would not buy if they were out of date. You know, there's some stores that mainly sell out-of-date products, such as Dilmart. And I love to go to Dilmart. My husband and I somehow end up going there on date nights often, but you can get a lot of products that are out of date, but you know, it depends on what risk you want to take. Personally, I am not buying meat that is out of date. I don't care how cheap it is. Other people obviously buy it because they sell it there. Bread, I think is totally fine within a week or whatever of going out of date. Or chips, I mean, the worst that's going to happen is they may not have the same crisp to them, but different goods that are very processed and don't have to be refrigerated, those are ways you can save money on your groceries. And it's something to consider looking at, because you really can get them for way cheaper if you go to one of these out-of-date stores, or you buy something in the normal grocery store that they've marked down because it's getting close to its sell-by date. It just depends on what that item is, how perishable that item is. All right, so for price comparison, whether we're comparing two different brands, or maybe we're comparing, should I get the 32-ounce bottle of grape juice, or should I get the 40-ounce bottle of grape juice, and how much money am I actually saving by getting the larger one? Well, this is a handy little formula that you can do right there in the store to help you decide which product to buy. So you divide the cost by the number of units. So in this example, for 64-ounce product that costs $8.32, you would calculate $8.32 divided by 64. That would say it's 13 cents per ounce. So then you can compare it to either another brand that's also 64 ounces or a different size bottle and see, is that going to be more than 13 cents or less than 13 cents per ounce? And that can help you decide whether or not it's worth buying something different. You could do this if it was a container of, let's say, disposable cups, you know, solo cups, you get 50 of them versus the off-brand, or maybe a different size cup. Is it better for me to buy this container that has 75 smaller cups? You can use this calculation to compare those, and it's very handy. And a lot of times you will actually see on the sticker, it gives you the per ounce or per unit cost. So it's really easy to compare, but they've just done this formula for you ahead of time. All right, so it's really important for us to research before we buy. We're especially talking about something, a large purchase like a vehicle here. So we are going to look at 4 different phases. And let's see here. Sorry, my phones are ringing over here. Okay, so our first phase is the pre-shopping activities. We're going to go into each of these more, so we want to make sure we're doing research ahead of time. We have evaluating our alternatives, so the different things that we could consider buying instead. Selection and purchase is our phase 3, so we go ahead with that purchase, we make that decision, and phase 4 is our post-purchase activities, so we'll look at what those mean. So first, with our phase 1, pre-shopping activities, powerful information is. I'm a Star Wars fan, so hopefully some of you may be also. But the more information we have, the wiser decision we can make, the more informed decision we can make. So the first thing we need to do is define our needs. Okay, so what is it that I'm looking for? Let's say it's a vehicle. What do I need this vehicle for? Am I just driving to and from work? How far am I driving? Am I driving on the interstate, or am I driving through the city? You know, how important is my mileage to me? Am I going to be using this vehicle to tow around bags of mulch, or do I need a truck for some reason? Am I going to be carrying several people in this vehicle? Just define what your needs are. And then get that product information that relates to what your needs are. So, okay, let's say we've determined that we need an SUV. We're going to carry some large items, but we also don't necessarily need the utility of a truck, and we want to have some extra seats if we want to carry people with us. So now we need to really research the product information on SUVs and have an open mind. You know, I know my parents just bought a, can't remember the name of it, and I don't want to offend anybody if they had this vehicle, but they bought a vehicle that's pretty ugly, I gotta say. And my mom even said, we've always thought this vehicle was kind of ugly, but we realize now it is so useful. It's a truck that has 4 seats, it has 4 doors, it has like a trunk space, and it also has the bed of the truck. It's super handy. Even though it's not the most beautiful truck we've ever seen, it really meets all the needs that we have. So that's a good way to have an open mind. So maybe you have a certain brand that you automatically dismiss. Well, let's look into it a little bit. Let's make sure that's not the right vehicle for you. All right, and then phase 2, we're going to evaluate our alternatives. So if we've done some research, we've figured out what alternatives are out there. So we need to compare the product, maybe the safety features. What does this offer me? And of course, the price. You know, I don't want to buy a vehicle that has all of the same features, all the same utility. I'm just paying extra for the label on that vehicle. So make sure you're looking at price comparisons for different products. And then new versus used. I personally am a big fan of buying used. I've never bought a brand new vehicle. Even if you buy a vehicle that's just a couple years old, you're going to save so much money. Literally, as soon as you drive off that lot with a new vehicle, you're going to lose 15 to 20% of the value of the vehicle. Of course, there are some risks with buying a used vehicle, especially if it's older, because you don't know how the previous owner treated it. You can do a Carfax, and it can really help you to figure out a lot of information on it, but not everything. So it is a bit of a gamble, but the amount of money you can save by buying used can usually pay for a lot of different repairs and still save you money. So definitely consider buying used and determine why you would want to buy new. What would be the benefit of that, and would it be worth it? What aspects do you need to consider in your purchase? So same thing we talked about, different utility that you may need, or what exactly am I going to be using this for? How far am I going to be driving? What do I need to really consider when I'm comparing different vehicles? And then, am I going to lease the vehicle, or am I going to buy it? So leasing is basically you're renting it, and at the end you give it back, versus buying that you either buy it all with cash, or you make a down payment and then you make payments for a few years maybe, and then at the end you own it. So we're going to have some homework questions we're going to look at that relates to leasing versus buying. Okay, so in this question, it wants us to figure out the total outflow of cost for buying versus leasing. So let's see here. On the left-hand side, we see how much it would cost for us to buy a vehicle, and then on the right-hand side, the leasing. Okay, so it just wants to know the total outflow of cash. So first of all, we know we are making a down payment of $7,800. And then we have monthly payments of $1,090 for 48 months. So you're going to take that $1,090 and you're going to multiply it by 48 months. Okay, so that equals $52,000. So you add the down payment to that $52,000, and then you're going to subtract the value at the end of the loan. So $14,800. So that gives you that if you were to buy the vehicle, it would cost you basically as an outflow $45,320. So again, we've taken the loan payment times 48 months plus the down payment, and then we subtract out the value at the end. Okay, so that tells us how much we would be having for an outflow if we bought it. If we were to lease the vehicle, it would be $820 a month for 48 months, so it's a little bit of a less expensive per month. Then we add the down payment that we have to put down. Also, we have to put down a lower down payment than if we bought it. And then at the end, we don't have any value. Instead, we have charges at the end of $1,550. So we're going to add the down payment plus the total payments, the 820 times 48 months. And then we're going to add the end of lease charges. That gives us $44,010. So if you are solely looking at this to see which one would be a cheaper option for you, then buying would be more expensive. Leasing would be a cheaper option. At the end of it though, are you wanting, once you've paid it off, to get another vehicle? Or are you saying, hey, I've paid it off, I'm going to keep driving this for another several years, however long I can get out of it? That's something to consider also, not just the price. Okay, this one adds in an opportunity cost. So let's look at how you do this one. So on the left-hand side, again, it's our buying situation. So we have our down payment of $7,200, plus we're going to add our opportunity cost. Our opportunity cost is what else could we have done with that $7,200 if we invested it at, and you see at the bottom it says 2% for that full amount of time that we'd be paying the car off. So the way you're going to figure that out is take the number of months that you're going to be making payments divided by 12. And then you multiply that by the interest rate of 0.02 and then the down payment of $7,200. So that gives you the opportunity cost. Okay, so that's what we're adding to this. So we have our down payment plus our opportunity cost plus the total amount of payments. So our $260 times 48 months. And then we subtract out the value of the vehicle at the end of the month, at the end of the loan, $5,900. So when we do all of that, it tells us that our buying purchase cost will be $14,356. We're going to do about the same thing for the leasing. We're going to have the security deposit times the interest rate that we could have invested it at the 2%, times the number of months divided by 12. So the same thing to figure out the opportunity cost. Plus we're going to add in what our lease payments were for 48 months, plus the end of lease charges. So that's going to give us $13,557 would be our leasing cost. So we can then compare, again, our lease was a bit cheaper, but we don't have the vehicle at the end of it. So that's something to consider. All right, for our phase 3, determining the purchase price. So now we are actually going to, we've made our selection, we are going to buy this vehicle. So one thing that's really important is negotiate. We can negotiate the price that you pay for it. You can negotiate the features it includes, maybe negotiate how many oil changes you're going to get. But it's very important for you to negotiate before you buy a vehicle. I bought a vehicle without any parental help not long after I got married. I got very, very young. And I still regret the fact that I didn't negotiate. I just signed the papers. And oh, I just hate myself for that. You can definitely get a lower price and additional features if you negotiate, negotiate, negotiate. Very important. All right, and then compare your financing alternatives. So you don't necessarily have to take your loan from the car lot that you're at. A lot of times they are going to have one loan they can offer you, and it may not be the best interest. So it's very important to maybe get a loan before you even go to the bank or before you go to the car lot from a bank, and you can compare that to what the car lot would offer you, but definitely make sure that you are comparing your financing alternatives. All right, and then once you've got that vehicle, make sure that you are doing your post-purchase activities. You have now bought a vehicle or maybe even a home. You know, we'll talk about that more next week, but you've bought this and you need to make sure you take care of your vehicle at this point. Make sure you get maintenance on it. Make sure that you're getting oil changes. Make sure that you are paying your tag and you don't have to pay late fees for that. It's important to take care of that item that you worked so hard to research and to purchase. So make sure that you do the maintenance on it. And then follow the same pattern whenever you need to get a repair as you did when you purchased it. Make sure you investigate where you're going to get this repair. Evaluate the different places, the different things they offer, and negotiate the prices. You are in control of your finances, and you can do these things to help save money. All right, a few other questions that you will see in your homework that are related to Chapter 6 outside of purchasing and comparing prices. One is a lawsuit. So I'm just going to touch on this briefly just so you can make sure you understand it for your homework. So in this example, a class action suit against a utility company resulted in a settlement of $2.3 million for 74,000 customers. If the legal fees, which must be paid from the settlement, are $500,000, what will each plaintiff receive? So if you got to be part of a lawsuit and you were going to receive money because there were, this utility company did something wrong for its customers, then this is the calculation to figure out how much would you actually receive. Maybe you've received an email or something in the mail telling you that you could be part of this lawsuit and receive money. Well, let's see how much money you would receive. So the settlement, wow, it's for $2.3 million. That sounds like, wow, I could get a big chunk of that. Well, there's also $500,000 of fees that we need to subtract out of the settlement amount. And then this amount of money is going to be divided between 74,000 customers. So at the end, you would get $24.32. Is it worth it for you to do the paperwork and get involved? Maybe, maybe not. But that is an important calculation that you can do very quickly to figure out whether or not it's worth it. All right, now we've talked about buying our car and we briefly touched on expenses. You're going to have a homework problem that looks similar to this, talking about the cost of the car on an annual basis. Okay, so our variable cost it's asking for first are going to include, let's see, our gas that we're going to have to pay for, and our parking tolls, and then we have oil changes and repairs. That's the only thing on here that's going to be a variable expense. All of the rest of it, depreciation is an annual expense. You're going to add depreciation to your interest every year. So you're going to pay the same amount of depreciation, or you're going to expense the same amount of depreciation. You're going to pay the same amount of insurance and the same amount of loan interest, and you are going to pay the same amount for your license and registration fees. So all of those amounts will be fixed. Those would add up to $4,795. To get our variable amount, the biggest variable here is how much are we actually paying in gas. So our annual mileage is 15,120 miles, and we get 24 miles to a gallon. So we're going to take that 15,000 divided by 24, and then we're going to multiply it by this large gas price of $3.50 per gallon. We must be living on the West Coast somewhere. And that will tell us how much we are paying annually in gas. Then you're also going to add the parking and tolls that you would pay, the $740, and then you're going to add the oil changes and repairs. That's variable because that's going to be different every year. So that's how you get those numbers, and then at the end, you're just adding the variable and the fixed costs together. All right, a couple more questions here I want to cover from Chapter 6. A franchise fee, so this is where you are getting in on some kind of company and you are hoping to make money off of someone else's idea, but you are doing work in order to extend their business, and they will pay you a percentage of the sales that you bring in. So in this situation, it says a work-at-home opportunity is available in which you'll receive 3% of the sales for the customers that you refer to the company. Okay, so for every customer, for every sale those customers purchase, you're going to get 3% of it. Okay, sweet. Your franchise fee cost is $660. How much would your customers have to buy to cover this fee? So this calculation is pretty easy. All you're going to have to do is take the $660 divided by 0.03 for 3%, and that will tell you that you have to make $22,000 in sales in order to just cover that franchise fee. That may or may not be worth it. It depends on what you're selling. You know, if you're selling candles, that sounds like a lot of sales. But if you're selling something big, like maybe an air conditioner, maybe that's not a lot of sales. So that's an important calculation to understand also, because sometimes we see these type of things advertised to us, easy ways to make money from home. This is how you would calculate how much you'd have to sell just to cover that franchise fee. All right, and then finally, my last one I'm going to cover here is a discount fee. So in this situation, it says an online buying club offers a membership for $175, for which you will receive a discount of 10% on all brand name items you purchase. Okay, well that sounds pretty good. So if I purchase a lot of these brand name items, then I'll get a 10% discount. Is it worth it for me to pay that $175 fee? You're going to do the same calculation here to figure out how much you would actually have to buy for that fee to pay for itself. I'm just going to take 175 divided by 0.1, which would be 10%. That would tell us we have to buy $1,750 worth of product in order for this to pay it off, for it to pay off for our fee. All right, well, I hope that this helps for Chapter 6. Please let me know what questions you have, and I will look forward to hearing from you.